Darren Lesord, NRA ILA's Manager of Hunting Policy. I don't know if he's a Duran Duran fan or not. Joins us on the program. Darren, how you doing, sir?
Tim, I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. All right, so
I'm not going to answer that question, by the way.
All right, that's fine. All right, so let's talk about what's going on here in Wyoming and Wisconsin, because I know Wyoming is this is a state we've talked about for a couple of years regarding the delisting of the wolf and the state trying to take over the management of the wolf population. What's the latest, Darren?
Well, I mean, the latest news in the overall delisting saga was that the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals finally actually issued a good ruling, and that was that the delisting in Idaho and Montana will stand. Probably going to be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, but I don't think that's going to get anywhere. So that was great news coming from the Ninth Circuit, a rare place good news comes from. And Wyoming right now is in the last stages of being delisted. They were left out of the congressional delisting a while back because they had a more controversial management plan. Interestingly enough, that management plan, for the most part, is what is now being implemented by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And Ed Bangs, the guy who works for the Fish and Wildlife Service and the scientist who's generally responsible for the reestablishment of the wolf in the Rockies, said it was a good plan all along, but it got maligned in the media, so it was left out of the congressional delisting. And now they're in the final stages of getting this thing done, and next year there will be a season on wolves. And what's basically going to happen is wolves are going to be treated like coyotes in the vast majority of the state. They can be shot on site because most of the state really is not wolf habitat, but the portion of the state in the northwest near Yellowstone is wolf habitat, and they'll be treated like trophy game there, like big game, and they'll have regulated hunting for wolves there.
All right. Now, what about Wisconsin? I mean, honestly, you think about wolves, and Wisconsin may not be the first state that comes to mind, but it too has a growing wolf population.
Yeah, I was actually bowhunting in Wisconsin a number of years ago and saw my first wolf chasing 3 deer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was about 8 feet up a tree as I was climbing up, saw some motion to my left-hand side, and saw a wolf chasing 3 deer out. 2 broke my way, 1 broke away from me. The wolf chased the one that broke away from me, and the 2 deer that were being chased stopped literally about a foot or 2 away from me. I could have reached out and hit either one of them in the head. So they stayed there. They didn't know I was there, and they were pretty fatigued, so they stayed there for about a minute. And it was an interesting experience, to say the least. But Wisconsin, they say, has about 700 wolves now. Many others think the population is much larger than that. Certainly, there's been a toll taken on the deer herd. I know a number of people who have lost bear hounds to wolves, and that's unquestionable, just the way that they were killed and eaten very quickly. So there's a lot of damage being done, some livestock being lost, and fortunately the legislature has empowered the DNR in Wisconsin to initiate a wolf hunting season. To be honest, it came much more quickly under the new administration there, under Governor Walker, than it would have under the past administration, so that's a great thing, and we're looking to have a wolf season in Wisconsin this upcoming year. Half the tags will go through a draw, and eventually half the tags will be reserved for a system where ultimately you get points if you aren't drawn, and half that pool of tags will be given to those people who weren't drawn in previous years. So they have the system established. It's going to be good. It's going to be nice to be able to hunt them around the Great Lakes region along with the states and the Rockies that are hunting them.
All right. Now, in the meantime, Darren, you've also been busy with a legislative issue down in Tennessee, and this is something I know that gun owners in the state are going to want to hear about. We've been talking a little bit about the safe commuter legislation down there in Tennessee. And this is, a variation of the parking lot bills that a number of states have passed over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I'm back in Tennessee after a long hiatus. We're filling in for a lobbyist who's worked for us for 11 years and going to work for the government and still serving the country. And so, yeah, I'm out here in Nashville right now, and we do have our Safe Commute Act that's both in the House and the Senate. And we're having some real trouble with leadership in those 2 houses right now. Unfortunately, the business lobby is very powerful here, and they're opposing us. FedEx is probably the most well-known. They're based in Memphis, and they have 15,000 employees working for them. And they ensure that all their employees are disarmed during their entire commute to and from home. And that's very unfortunate in a city that has the number 2 highest crime rate in the country, number 1 rape rate in the country, all according to the FBI. So pretty unconscionable as far as I see it. And this legislation would ensure that employees can commute from their homes with a firearm and park with a firearm locked in their vehicle out of sight, and then also applies to other private properties where those property owners have chosen to allow people to park on their property.
What is the latest on this, Darren? What should gun owners be doing right now?
Well, gun owners really need to get active in Tennessee, I have to say, because the business community, again, is very powerful out here, and they're making some bogus private property arguments. We believe that their private property rights end where the rubber meets the asphalt. They don't have a right to determine what lawfully possessed items are in a vehicle, a privately owned vehicle. And so really our members just have to be very active, contacting their legislators, both in the House and the Senate, and telling them to support a strong Safe Commute Act. Right now what's going on, I actually just got news a few minutes ago that our Senate sponsor is looking at some amendments, and the Georgia model was unfortunately mentioned in that. I just spoke to the Senate sponsor today. Nothing was mentioned to me. So it's a little frustrating to get this word. Of course, I'll be checking things out tomorrow, but there is this big push to really water this thing down, and we just can't have that. So what our members need to send is a message to their legislators that we need a strong, Safe Commute Act, no detrimental amendments being added to it. And that's the message for now, and we'll, of course, keep them posted on our email alerts and probably doing phone banks and postcards, too. Need to make sure that they're active this time around.
Absolutely. And right now, Darren, should they be focusing on the Senate side or both the Senate and the House?
Really, it's both sides. In the Senate, the bill number is Senate Bill 3002, and in the House, it's House Bill 3560. And the bills are in both House and Senate committees right now. So, and we're getting close to deadlines, so they need to be pushing both bills in both houses, contacting their representative and their senator.
All right, Darren Lesord, NRA ILA's manager of hunting policy, and again, this it's not just a big legislative issue; it is a big issue for gun owners. Oklahoma was the first state that passed parking lot protection legislation because of a number of Weyerhaeuser employees that have been fired for having their rifles locked up in their trucks or in the back of their cars on the first day of deer season. You've had AOL employees who have been fired in Utah for having firearms legally owned in the trunk of their car. They were going shooting after work. Couples have been fired from Disney World in Florida for having their legally owned firearm. I mean, this isn't a hypothetical issue. There are real people who get hurt by this, and it really, and I got to say as well, Darren, legally speaking, the Court of Appeals in Denver validated the Oklahoma law. A court in Florida upheld the Florida law. So, the legal challenges to parking lot legislation have all failed. We do have our property rights, and we don't lose our own property rights the second we get in our car and start driving to work. But again, this is unfortunately one of those issues where gun owners and Second Amendment supporters are supporting our individual freedoms, and we've got a number of members of the business community who are arguing for property rights on their businesses.
That's right, and this certainly does go beyond self-defense to duck hunters in the mornings who want to hunt before work, or deer hunters who want to be able to hunt after work. There's no doubt about that. And the property rights argument really is bogus because of the point that you make, that they don't have a right to determine what is in our personal vehicles once they've invited us to park on their property. They have to understand that their property rights are expected to narrow some when they invite others on. We aren't talking about residential driveways here. We're talking about public parking lots and employee parking lots. That's it. So it is very important stuff, and especially when you're talking about Memphis, the city that has the second highest violent crime rate in America, and then Nashville has the number 6 violent crime rate in America. So these are places where people do need to defend themselves, and certainly Tennessee has a great hunting population, and those people need to be able to do their thing before and after work also. We have Kentucky with a very strong law that passed in 2006. They haven't had a single problem, and we don't expect any problems here. What's interesting is Kentucky, they didn't have any opposition there. I was the lobbyist for NRA when we passed the law there, and UPS is based there. They didn't oppose it. There was literally no opposition in the business community, and you'd think the world was coming to an end here in Tennessee with the same law being proposed.
Absolutely right. Well, it is frustrating. Darren, again, I appreciate you coming on the program. I hope that senators and state reps are being inundated with calls from gun owners across the state here because, you know, again, the louder we speak, the more our voices are heard, then the better the chances are that we can actually see our right to keep and bear arms strengthen this legislative session there in the volunteer state. Darren, again, know you're a busy guy. Really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us. Hope we can do this again very soon.
Thanks a lot, Cam.
You bet. Darren Lesord, NRA ILA's manager for hunting policy, joined us here tonight.